Hey there everyone, this is Leo over at TechLine, and I am incredibly excited today. And the reason is because what we have over here on this table is our first ever commission build. That's right, if we check over at techlinepcs.com, we did update the commissions and consultation page, which I'll go over the consultation part in another video. But for the first time ever, somebody ordered a commission build from us where we get to work with them on having very specific parts for their very specific needs. Of course, charge a little premium just to make sure that, we're putting the parts together and giving them a quote for all the parts. But I'll go over the price of the entire system, what their budget looked like, and the selection of parts that we went into in just a moment. But the reason I'm just again making this video is because I'm just very excited because this is our first ever commission. And I just kind of want to go through the entire process, be very transparent about it, and just show what it is that they ordered and put the whole thing together. And I'm already going to say off the bat that I'm a little bit jealous about the system as well, because it's got better parts than my own PC that I've been using. And I feel like I'm going to have to upgrade soon enough, because I'm like, I can't have a PC that's subpar. So I'll be going over that in probably another video as well once I sell a couple of more PCs, because I would also like to be able to upgrade my own system and talk about that in a future video. But for now, let's talk about this 5800X and 6800 XT build that we're going to be putting together for this customer. So I actually wrote myself a couple of notes for a video for one, so I can kind of read off a little bit and kind of, keep myself updated during the actual video. So the budget that was given to me for this entire PC build is $1,500. So with $1,500 in mind, I generally go for, at least when it comes to the first part that I'm going to pick, is the video card. And the video card for me does have to be around a third of the cost of the PC build to just a little bit higher, depending on what it is that they're aiming to do. This customer in particular wanted to make sure that they can go for 1440p gaming, as well as some light video editing here and there, because they're also going to be doing some stuff on a YouTube channel, which of course means that I have to pick myself a beefy video card to make sure that they can actually play at those frame rates and do a bit of video editing. Now, when it comes to that price range, if we're aiming for the whole 1/3 of the cost of the total build, I went with the Radeon RX 6800 XT, which costs $600, at least this very version that we have over here from XFX. And the 6800 XT, in my opinion, it is the best price to performance card that you could find in this price class. And I actually used other reviewers like Hardware Unboxed to kind of see what their price charts that they had, because they do a lot of good video card reviews. I would check out their video in the link below as well to kind of explain that price breakdown. And if we see for that specific cost, for the amount of performance that you get for this specific card, that's amazing. Like, you can't really get anything better. The only other video card that you can find at that price range from Team Green, NVIDIA, would be the RTX 3070, which is a graphic card that I'm using in my own build. And that's about $30 to $40 less than this, and it is nowhere near as powerful. Sure, it has a little bit better in terms of RTX performance, but honestly, that's not what they're aiming for over here. They want to have just really good 1440p gaming, high frame rate, and RT is not very important to them. So they don't really need that on their side, which means we don't have to spend the extra money to have extra RT cores. Now, if we were to jump over to the used market, we can find 3080s, which are comparable in performance to the RX 6800 XT with better RT performance, and you could find them in the used market for around $550, give or take. But the customer doesn't want any used parts. Completely respectable. I completely understand that. It's also good to keep in mind on your own builds that when you're trying to find any kind of parts, looking for video cards in the used market ain't that bad of an idea, especially when you want to see, trying to get the best performance you can for the dollars that you're putting in. So for me, the RX 6800 XT is going to be the card to go to. And of course, afterwards, I asked them about color. How would you like your PC to look? Because if you care about aesthetics, that will affect your bottom dollar when it comes to the overall PC build. And according to them, they said it just had to be blue. I went, okay. So not only does it have to be blue, but it also has to be lit up blue. And I'm like, I got it. So Fractal, which I've been a fan of their cases, I'm using it in my own personal build as well, has the new Pop Air list of cases that are coming out. They have the Pop Air Mini, which I used over in a couple of other builds that I'm going to be doing as well, which are much smaller micro ATX builds that include a bunch of argb lights in it. And they have their much larger full ATX cases that we're going to be using here today. That this one comes in a cyan color. So we'll show off the build itself once we pop it on open, and it includes itself its own series of argb lights, which will of course put them into blue. So we'll go with that as well. Lastly, in terms of lighting and colors and all that, we're going to go with a tower cooler. I wanted to go with an AIO, but that did cut into the cost of the total build. So I kind of had to cut back and just stick with an air cooler. And a 5800X, yes, it does run a little bit spicy, but if you're using a tower cooler with 2 fans on it, it's going to be more than enough to cool down that processor. And for me, I went with a Deepcool tower cooler, the AG620. This is going to be pretty nice for the whole build. And I'm sure that once we unbox everything and plug it all in, it's going to look absolutely fantastic on that side as well. Let's get all the ARGB lights all hooked up on that side. I'm pretty excited to get this going. So let's pop these parts open and start building this PC. So for the motherboard, we're working with an ASRock B550 Phantom Gaming motherboard, which already includes built-in Wi-Fi and compatibility for all the parts that we're using here. On the processor side, the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X, 8 cores, 16 thread, boosts up to 4.7 GHz, more than enough power for what we're going to need in terms of this video editing machine. In terms of memory, a pair of Alloy DDR4 16 gig sticks running at 3600 MHz. And the reason I chose these is, well, really just going to sync up well with the LEDs. They are going to look pretty after this. We'll just go ahead and slap them into slots 2 and 4. For storage, you went with the Samsung 970 EVO Plus M.2 drive. Not their fastest M.2, but you know what? This is going to be more than enough for what my client's going to need. And from there, we'll just get it slipped right into the M.2 slot. Screw that right on onto the motherboard. And now we got the motherboard already set up, the storage, the processor, and the RAM is already all in here. We're not going to do the cooler right now. We'll do the cooler a little bit afterwards, as tower coolers are a bit too thick to set them all up right now. And it's because they kind of get in the way of other cables that are in there. So let's go ahead and pop open the Fractal Pop Air and see what we get on that side. Well, gotta say I'm very excited about working with the Fractal Pop Air case. So let's get this back onto the table here. And the reason is because I would love to see about working on the Fractal Pop Mini at some point, which is the micro ATX version of the same exact case that we have over here. And if the full ATX version is clean, if it's affordable, which it is, and if it's aesthetic and easy to work in, I kind of want to work on those mini cases to kind of just use those for future micro ATX builds. So maybe in a future video we'll see some of the Pop Minis that are on this channel. But for now, let's at least get this. Ooh, all right. I'm already feeling this. I'm already feeling this. Let's get this guy open over here. Of course, I got to flip it upside down. You know, we're got to get the colors in there. All right. We'll just pop the case open. Ooh, that's a big boy. That is a nice looking case. I'm already feeling this right now. I'm already feeling this. So let's just get this open. Always keep the styrofoam so I can use that for shipping. Oh, how nice. They even include they taped on a little dust filter onto the top of the case as well too. So that way if it gets a little filthy, can put a dust filter right on top. I was considering when I was ordering these cases and picking the parts of actually using the top layer that's over here for an AIO, but we didn't get that far because again, getting AIOs, it would have been a 240 millimeter AIO, but it would have cut into the cost by quite a bit. So kind of just, again, tower cooler. It's an option though. This case does have a lot of space inside of it for such things. Initial opening of it, I'm feeling this very nicely. This peeling is going great. Oh, there it goes, just stuck in the corner. There we are. Ah, man, that is pretty. I'm loving the way that looks. Look at this thing. This is the Cyan build. It does come in multiple different colors that we've seen through the Fractal website. It comes with a full front mesh panel as well, so there's going to be a lot of airflow coming into the front. 2 ARGB fans included onto the front, 1 over into the back. Again, there is space up at the top for at least a 240 millimeter AIO if you want to use that as well. Or you can remove the front fans and add an AIO there as well. One of my considerations that I wanted to do actually was just remove the 2 front fans, move them over towards the top, and then put an AIO in over towards the front to pull air into the case. But we don't have to go that far, at least for this build that we're using it over here. So let's get this bad boy open and kind of just look around the sides of it over here real quick. Oh, another thing to notice, in terms of included ports, if we see over here at the top, it does have audio jacks. It does, of course, have power, 2 USB 3.0 ports, and it has a Type-C port, but you need an additional adapter if you want to have that Type-C port usable, which we didn't get, so we're not going to be using the Type-C, but our motherboard should have a Type-C port in the back of it if you wish to use that. So let's get the motherboard installed. Obviously, before we can get the motherboard installed, we got to pop off the side panels. How do you take this off? Is there like a, does it slide back? Oh, there it goes. Comes off backwards. All right. And of course, we just got to do the same with the back panel. Okay, not only am I already in love with the aesthetics, the cyan look of the case that we have here as well, I'm already falling in love with Fractal's way of just the cable routing that's on here. This is so clean that we're looking back over here, like the cable's already here. It's already got the Velcro strap, so we can just make sure that nothing is gonna go haywire. Everything is tied up properly. Like, I've been working on a lot of cases recently, especially with my previous build, restocking our own site. But man, when it comes to a commission build, you get to pick some nice quality parts to put on the people. And this is a nice quality part that I'm looking at over here. And you can just simply tell there's all this room over here for, like, if you wanted to get, like, let's say a fan controller, you can mount them onto here. Look at this. You can even just unscrew this part that's over here. Okay, not by hand. All right, just my little tweezer there. Get that bad boy off and look at this. Now you have a spot where you can start mounting in your drives or fan controller as an example and just get that in on there. Like, this is great. Again, my customer wants to be able to use this for video editing. They're going to need all this area here for storage. They're going to be putting in some SSDs over here. Looks like you can probably mount something around this area as well. I'd probably have to open up the manual to see that. And of course, there's more storage down over here at the bottom in the Bay Area, like most of these PCs are. So there's a lot of spots over here that they can fit all that extra storage, or they can get a NAS if really they need way more than that. But this is already looking pretty good, pretty clean to me, and I'm already loving it. But let's go work over onto the other side where we can get the motherboard itself mounted. Now, unfortunately, this motherboard doesn't come in with its own pre-installed I/O shield, so we're just gonna have to do it ourselves. That's not a big issue and all that. There we are, quick snap. Now it's already in there, and we'll just get the motherboard itself. Unfortunately, the case actually has some standoffs that make it a lot easier to just simply snap the motherboard on. So all you really got to do afterwards is just grab your screws and just start screwing it in there. Also, another side note from a builder perspective is thank you, Fractal, for making sure to put every set of screw in its own separate bag, because I've definitely worked with cases where what they'll do is they'll put every single screw in the same bag, and then you basically have to dump the whole thing out and just kind of work through the bags of screws that you've just dumped out there, and it's just kind of a hassle to deal with. It's like, oh look, we have a bag of specifically motherboard screws, so I know that I could just pop open this bag and work with it. So thank you for the convenience from a builder perspective, Fractal. I do appreciate that. And when it comes to power supplies, I would definitely recommend making sure to kind of have all the modular components plugged in before you ever actually have to worry about, anything else that happens afterwards. So double check how many plugs you're going to have to put into the motherboard. Double check if there's anything extra, like in this case, a fan controller, which there is one in the back. Well, not so much for the controller, but just to power on the fans with their LEDs that they have on there. And then also double check how much you're going to need for the graphic card itself. In this case, the graphic card is going to need 2. This one's going to be for the external power that's going to go into the fans. And then we'll have this one here for the graphic card itself. There's 2 connections for the processor, so we're just going to plug them both in as well. All right, now let's get this bad boy in the case. Something else I do like about this case is it actually presents us with 2 different options when it comes to ways that we intend on mounting the power supply. It has the top option that you see over here, where it's going to blow air from the fan that's included in the power supply into the graphic card itself, which is cool if the graphic card itself gets super spicy and you want to cool it down. It adds some airflow into the case itself. You just have to make sure that you have proper airflow going out of the case to deal with that air in there. Or you can flip it upside down the regular way and have air go out of the bottom of the case, which is going to get caught into the dust filter that you have down here. So I do like that about this case as well. It at least gives you the option between the 2. But fortunately, the GPU that we're using is going to be a tri-fan GPU, so it shouldn't require any kind of extra cooling coming in from the power supply itself. So we shouldn't need anything like that. So I'm just going to install it the regular way and just have it facing downwards into the filter. All right, now for the part that every single PC builder hates to work on. It's going to be cable routing. So of course, going to have to start unwinding, untying this entire mess of cables and kind of figuring out what's going to go where and what's going to go plug onto this spot and that spot, and make it easier so that when you close the case, it's not going to be, you know, stuck on the back of the door or anything like that. So let's go ahead and just route a couple of these cables in through here. First with the power, we're going to need one for, as you can see over here, well, that's the USB controller. Here we go. Power for the LEDs. So we just got to make sure that gets plugged in as well. We can kind of forget about this cable entirely and kind of just shove it off into an area that they're probably not going to need for a while, like the drive storage that's down here. There, see, that way they can still access the storage that's down here when you shove it into that area. And then from there, we'll just need the two for the processor, which is going to go over at the top. Fortunately, they also make it easy to route things over here through the top as well. So you could just simply just snake it on over in this direction. And then worry about that once you're on that side. But you can see it does, you're a little limited on length, but it does give you all the little routing areas that are here. So you could just take like more zip ties and just tie the cable off to the side and keep it nice and clean. If you want to be extra, you can add another over here at the bottom area or more towards the right. But really just one is probably enough to kind of hold that together. So we'll see that once we get a little bit later to the cable routing management area. And of course, one more for another very important part, the GPU itself. This case does happen to have one right there. So we can just kind of sneak this cable in right through here, and that's going to be the one that's going to go into the GPU as well. I hate this cable so much, the USB 3 cable, mostly because it's so thick that it's hard to manage. So you kind of have to like really play around that. And yeah, we'll get the USB 3 cable sneaked in through there as well. I'm going to have to also, of course, unbuckle all these fans that we see here, since we're going to have to get them all plugged into the motherboard. All right, a bit off screen, I did end up daisy chaining a lot of the fans that you can see over here together, so that way I didn't have to worry about it. We essentially do a similar thing over here. We got the exhaust fan, it's going to get plugged into the case port that's over here. But then from there, we just need to get the power connectors. I want to get these plugged in without the actual tower cooler, so that way the tower cooler can get in the way of these plugs pretty badly. You can do it if you have like a pair of chopsticks or something like that to like really just push into the cables, but I just don't want to deal with that. So now that we have basically all the motherboard connections in there, we'll see about getting the tower cooler on here on top of the 5800X. Okay, I am excited about working with this cooler. This is the first time I've worked on a tower cooler from Deepcool. Now, I've used Deepcool cases beforehand, and they are in a nice budget range when you're looking for nice micro ATX cases, but I've never tried using one of their coolers beforehand. So this is going to be an adventure to kind of really pop this open, and man, look at that. That is a sizable cooler that's on there. The other thing I did want to make sure when I got this cooler was that it's going to match the case aesthetically. So that's why it is a black cooler, 2 black fans with argb lights that we see on it. So it's going to be matching up with all the lights that we already have on the case. As you saw, I already connected the case up with argb lights and an argb RAM kit. So we're going to have all of these kind of going with the same blue color theme and get this installed on there to kind of make sure that everything is cool. So man, remove before installation. Yeah, people forget to do that very often. I'm not going to forget that. All right, like most AM4 platforms, you're just going to have to remove these 2 areas to actually get any kind of cooler on there. So, all right, with these removed, I do like to make sure to hold the back plate in, because if you notice, if you're not holding it in, this is also why I like to keep the case up for this part in particular. The whole back plate just falls right on out. So I kind of like to try and keep it up and kind of hold it into place, and then get the proper parts to mount this on here. We see that the actual screws come with these, which will screw onto those parts that we see that we took off from the AM4 backplate. They'll screw right onto the backplate itself, and then we can put brackets onto them. Put one into each corner to make sure that it's going to be fully secure. This is one of the parts I definitely don't mess around with when it comes to installing anything onto a case, because you want to make sure that a processor, especially something like the 5800X, is going to be nice and cool. So we're just going to make sure this is fully screwed on in there. You don't have to go all full hog and take out like a plier or anything like that. You could honestly do it by hand and be just fine. So from there, we're going to go ahead and flip the case back over onto its back, and we'll see about getting the tower cooler itself mounted onto that processor. Now before we actually get the cooler itself on, we are going to have to mount these brackets onto there so that way the cooler has somewhere to go. So we'll just go ahead and get these on there. We just got to get these nuts screwed in onto every single corner. And see, now you can use the tool to fully screw these in. And let's not forget to apply ourselves a nice little healthy glob of thermal paste. One thing we need to do is just mount the actual tower cooler itself right onto that. And we can see it already comes pre-installed with these screws that all you have to do is just lay it down there and screw this thing on and get this on there first and worry about it from there. And I just realized I'm gonna have to remove a fan. Oh man, I just realized it afterwards. All right, so the middle fan actually has to come off so that way we can reach the screws that are here to screw it down. So let's just get this off first. There it goes. All right, so we're gonna have to install this on a little bit afterward. Oh, I just realized the second problem. I think the front fan is hitting the RAM stick. It is. Oh, I'm gonna have to raise the fan. First, we'll just take that second fan off. We're just gonna have to take both fans off really at this point. RAM clearance. It's an issue that only became more and more recent of a problem. Funny enough, I already have the same issue on my own cooler on my personal rig, and all I have to do is just raise the fan itself by like a few fins and it was fine. All right, that's mounted on there. You could tell that is on there. All right, so from there, we're just gonna have to start mounting the fans back on. I'll probably have it sitting like right on top of the, like a little bit above the RAM. There, see, now it actually fits and there's enough clearance under the RAM itself that you could see there where it's fitting. Now that the tower cooler is properly mounted onto the motherboard, we'll just snap on the rest of the fans here and then begin daisy chaining the rest of the ARGB lights onto one another and then connect the fans themselves onto the motherboard header. Yeah, look at the size of this thing. This is the biggest, I have to move the camera back. This is the biggest box I've ever had for a graphics card on this channel so far, the 6800 XT. And of course, XFX, they make it so that you want to stand it up tall. Now I wanted to get a different model of card, but one that I figured would have matched a bit more aesthetically with this case, but anything that was, I would say, a different color scheme would have been significantly pricier. Oh my God. Ugh. Nothing makes me happier than unboxing a fresh graphics card. Look at this thing. Man, oh man, look at that. I do love unboxing brand new graphics cards. This is hefty. Oh my goodness, there's some weight to this guy. I'm gonna need to take a weigh on this thing separately, but man, this thing has got some heft. Oh, what a sick looking back plate. The whole Merc logo that's on the back. Oh, it's got some bits that we got to peel off of there too. That is glossy. Triple fan design, perfect for 4K gaming and even 1440p gaming. I would personally recommend doing 1440 if you're going to go for a, high frame rate gaming on this, but perfectly capable at 4K. And this thing is huge. This is actually the biggest graphic card that I've personally had to use, at least until I get my hands on a 4090 at some point. But man, this thing is going to chug along just fine, especially for what my customer wants it for. Video editing and 1440p gaming, they can get no better price to performance than this card. Over at the front, when it comes to I/O, we have ourselves one HDMI port and 3 display ports, so more than enough for multi-monitor displays. But first, what we need to do is get ourselves that sweet peel. Oh, that is so satisfying. Well, we got to do the other side as well, because it looks like we got some on the fans, so let's peel that off as well. All right, and let's get this bad boy installed. In just a moment here, we're gonna see for a real reason why I made sure to get myself a case this large, because when it came to the graphic card that we're using, even though it's technically only 2 slots that we need to open up at the front, it is like at least 3 slots. But when it comes to a 3-fan design cooler on one of these kinds of graphic cards, you really got to check the case itself to see if it could fit something like that. But like always, when I'm checking the cases, I'm always making sure to check the size of the graphic card itself, and the case would usually have, just like the tower cooler, what size that it can support when it comes to the graphic card. But look at this thing, it perfectly fits in there without any issue. I just wanted to grab another angle from the front. Look how big this thing is. when you put it inside this case. Like, you'd barely have enough room for a front AIO if you wanted to. I would most likely recommend the top one if you're ever going to mount one inside this case, because these cards are just so big. But we're going to have to move some cables out of the way to get this thing to fit. There we go. That is nice. I'm definitely going to make a recommendation to my client that they may want to get some kind of a GPU anti-sag bracket, or I've seen some folks like add a Funko Pop or something under there to keep this thing elevated, but man, that thing is huge. I love how big that thing is. I'm actually a bigger fan of like small form factor cases, but you gotta have to appreciate just like the thickness of this thing. Just look at that. That is massive. There we go. Everything is now connected. So let's see about getting a Windows install and setting all this thing up. All right, let's plug the computer in onto my test bench. So we're just gonna turn it on and kind of see what we get over here. And this is the first boot. Oh man, that looks so sweet. We got all the RGBs connected over to the same header. We're going to have to obviously program the RGB lights that are going over into the RAM 6 itself. We just have a nice solid white going into the graphics card itself. Unfortunately, I don't have like a, RGB controller for this yet, but man, everything is coming up exactly according to plan. Even the front lights are all syncing up with the rest of it too. So all that's looking absolutely fantastic. We're going to make all of this kind of sync over into kind of match the cyan color of the case, so that way it's all kind of, matching the same color as opposed to going through the rainbow that we're seeing over here. But yep, looks like even the monitor is detecting there is a processor installed. So we just got to get the motherboard bits set up, add XMP on there and resizable bar, and or SAM. I forgot the AMD version of rebar actually. But yep, we're just going to get all that installed, put the Windows install on there, get the RGB working properly, so that way when they pop it open and turn it on, their first reaction is going to be, holy crap, look at this system. It looks hella sweet, which I think it does. All right, so already got smart access memory and already got XMP profile enabled, but I only just found out that they have the built-in RGB settings, so we don't even need to have software to do it, especially since the motherboard already has it built onto it in the BIOS. But I still recommend using software to do it, but I already found that it's by default set over to rainbow. So let's see what we have if we set it over to static, and then from there, just tell it to apply, and that shuts it off there. Now, according to the internet, the RGB code for cyan is 100 green and 100 blue. So let's go ahead and type both of that in there, and then let's apply that. Oh wow, that is exactly it. That is looking great. And from here, we're just gonna get some cable tying done, so that way it looks a little bit pretty and somewhat presentable around the back. Not that I expect anybody to be in the back here anytime soon, but it's nice to make sure that all the cables are nice and tucked away somewhere, and it's not going to cause people to trip over them. So just using the ones that they already came with, but probably grab some more ties and get these all down on there so it's nice and tight in there. Now, this video isn't so much going to be a benchmark for the 5800X and the RX 6800 XT, but I did run a couple of games just to see how it plays, so I can let my customer know how well it runs in a couple of titles. As an example, for Red Dead Redemption 2, 1440p on Ultra settings, I did end up getting around 115 FPS for it. For Witcher 3, just so I could have some kind of RT title on there on Ray Trace Ultra, I ended up getting 45 FPS at 1440p. I don't recommend trying to use Ray Trace settings when it comes to this 6800 XT. Probably the next tier up, or an NVIDIA card, would be better for ray trace performance. For Warhammer 40k Darktide, also played with it on high, 67 FPS with RT on. When it came to games like CSGO, competitive titles, 552 frames per second average, absolutely insane on that side. And for Apex Legends, played around with that as well, 250 FPS at the highest settings possible, 1440p. And if you have one of those 244 Hz monitor, you can absolutely play that when it comes to these kind of esports titles on a system like this. So that's going to wrap it up over here with this build. I absolutely love this build. This is probably my favorite PC that we have built so far on this channel. It's definitely the most powerful PC that we've built so far. With the whole 5800X that we have going on in there, I did check the temps, even when it's going off, not a single issue the entire time when running this thing. Even the temps for the graphics card is no pretty. Even the temps on the graphic card itself, not a single issue whatsoever. It looks absolutely cool. I mean, look at this thing. It's just going with the complete cyan look. I am in love with this thing, and I'm hoping that my customer is also going to fall in love with it. I'm certain that they are going to be, especially with just how well this thing was put together. This case from Fractal to Pop Air, first time I've ever worked inside of this case, and honestly, it's been a dream. Everything inside this case was just easy to get to. The cable management was super easy, very clean to get to, no issues whatsoever. There wasn't any break-offs in the back that I had to worry about. I wasn't worrying about cutting my fingers in any corners or anything like that. Honestly, I would definitely get another one of these, like for a future build. Like, I just think this one is absolutely so good to work on. So yeah, until next time, go ahead and like and subscribe. Please do, helps the channel a lot. And check out our website over at techlinepcs.com, where you too can also get yourself a commission build like this and work with me, and we'll see about getting you the PC of your dreams. Until next time, this is Leo signing out.